Hello there ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to what I painted this month, December 2016. And as you can see, quite a decent number of miniatures there. No terrain, that's just there for background decoration purposes. Only the miniatures featured in this picture were painted during December. And the vast majority of them were painted very close to the start of the month, because I have been ill quite a bit recently, and you may be able to hear in my voice that I've got quite a sore throat at the moment, which has explained the relative lack of videos. Still been able to keep up with the live shows for the most part, but it does take its toll on the old voice at the moment. So, tons of Dead Zone Plague here. I've got the faction pretty much how I want it now, so I've got a lot of options in the game, and you can see at the front a single Stormcast Eternal model. So we're going to start with him actually, so here we go. Here we have the Lord Veritant. You'll notice he's without his faithful Gryph-hound. That's because that model isn't finished yet, because I took an age deciding how to actually paint it and it's still not finished. At the moment I'm leaning towards white feathers with either a black or purple body, but we shall see. Anyway, as for the Lord Veritant, pretty standard as far as Stormcast go. There's nothing particularly strange about him, painting wise. The usual gold wash and then a couple of layers of highlight style. If we look at the back, you can see that his black cloak is slightly bigger than your average cloak, and he's got more scroll work on him than a lot of the others. But other than that, very, very standard. I do find it fun to paint small amounts of Stormcast because you can make them look good quickly and easily, I think. It only becomes a chore when you're doing a ton of them at once. So this guy was quite fun, just doing one model at a time. Moving swiftly onto the Dead Zone Plague then. So this is the contents of the faction booster, and also the new expansion, which explains the vast number of zombies. So we're starting with a dog though, as you can see here. Nothing difficult about this at all. The way I've painted all my Plague, which is to prime in white, spray the back of them in yellow, and then a red glaze over the entire miniature so the back turns a kind of orangey colour. Then dry brush the entire back in yellow, then a light dry brush over that in white, and that's over the entire model including the front, the white dry brush, and then picking out the various details like the eyes and the teeth, and then lots of Blood for the Blood God paint applied liberally to wherever I feel like there should be blood. For example, inside the dog's mouth, you can see there's quite a bit there. So the ones that are all skin, like the Aberration right here, are quite quick and easy to do in that particular style. You can see with him the blood is all around the bottom of his fists, like he's just finished punching someone in the face repeatedly into a bloody pulp. And the rest of him, not much detail picked out at all unless you include the dry brushing. You can see he's got some nice teeth there. Here we have the Plague Teraton that's very similar, except he has some metal armour plates on him, which of course were done in a metal colour, oddly enough, then washed, and then there's some rust effects over that, which are the GW paints Typhus Corrosion and Riser Rust. It's quite an interesting model, this one. This is in the old Restic, whereas the Aberration was in the new Restic, and the Aberration is much better quality. So anything new that's coming out in that new resiny, plasticky material, I don't know whether they're still calling it Restic or not, but the new recipe has far fewer mould lines than the old one. So for example, this Plague Teraton was more difficult to clean up. All in between his fingers and everything there were mould lines, so a little bit tricky. Hopefully you can't see any of them at this stage. Moving on now, we've got a guy here with a flamer of some description. All his flesh was done in the same way with the various glaze and dry brushing stages. And then his weapon was painted in the same way as the Plague Teraton's armour. The stage 3s that can still handle weapons, I've done all of those with blue trousers, which is just washed in black and highlighted with a bit of white dry brushing. And they have the kind of white sleeveless shirts on for the most part, that are usually quite torn up and ragged, which is just white with the black wash and then a dry brush of white over that as well. I try and time the painting stages so that I can dry brush basically the entire model white at the same time, rather than piece by piece. So you can probably see there that the hair also has some white dry brushing on it. Here we've got a Plague Swarm. Now I found this quite tricky actually, not the actual painting process, but the deciding which bits to paint which colour, because there are a lot of creatures that I hadn't previously painted for the faction, so I had to decide as I was going along, and I decided that anything that's a rat should probably be brown, so I did all of those brown, and then all the rest of it, all the slugs and the centipede type creatures, I decided to do those in the same style as the rest of the Plague skin. So the rats do stand out quite a bit. and then a few eyes picked out with green, you can probably see there. Here we have an old mortar team. I say old because this is in Restic and the new Plague Infantry are plastic, such as the one you saw a minute ago, which you'll notice has a much bigger head than these guys. The old Rustic ones have very, very tiny heads, so a little bit of rescaling going on as they're moving forward with the Plague faction. They don't look too horrifically out of place though, and nothing too crazy to report with paintwork on these guys. It's very handy in the game though, I can say that much. Now we're moving on to some zombies. I painted a few first and then a lot later because I wasn't sure how I was going to paint them exactly, because I didn't want them to look too similar to the rest of the stage 3s and get mixed up with them. So I decided instead of blue they would be wearing entirely green, which was then dry brushed white. And I think it looks pretty tasty, especially with the blood splattered everywhere. You can see the one on the left there looks like he's just been smearing something on the side of his face. The one in the middle seems to be eating some intestines, which are dripping everywhere, including onto the ground and down his trousers. And the one on the right has a bit of blood on his hand. These are plastic, and very, very nice to put together, these zombies. Now we've just got individual shots of the rest of the zombies that I painted later once I'd nailed down the paint scheme. So I'll whiz through them a bit, if there's nothing special to report on each one. Blood on the hands here. This one bashing himself in the head with a gun, I quite like that. Stooping over with a pair of pliers, as zombies are known to do. And another one eating some intestines with blood dripping everywhere. And this guy seems to have a rather serious eye injury, and I think I've actually modelled it so he's poking himself in the eye with his thumb while trying to salute maybe. Or maybe he just thinks the eye is lovely and succulent and juicy and he wants to get his fingers around it so he can eat it. Then we've got another one smeared in blood. I like how they give you some female torsos and heads as well on these zombies, so you can add a bit of variety to them. Another one who seems to be bleeding all down the side of his body. This one's got a potentially fatal torso wound, although he is a zombie, so he's probably not going to care too much. Another one with pliers. This one's leaning back a bit with a helmet, and there seems to be a rather gaping wound on his leg. And another woman with bloody hands. And finally another one with pliers with some blood dripping out of his mouth, and you can see it's kind of dribbled all the way down his chest as well. So back to the group shot for this month. Quite pleased with that amount of progress for a single month. That's more models than I would usually manage in that time period, even though the latter half of the month I didn't do much at all. The start of January I haven't done too much yet, but I am working on some Age of Sigmar terrain, and hopefully I can get that Gryph-hound done by the end of the month as well, and maybe one or two other things. We shall see. Assuming I stay healthy, I should be able to get at least a few things done. I'm going to be getting back into the swing of videos as well very soon, hopefully if my voice recovers 100% over the next week or two. Got some more Total War Warhammer stuff to put out, and various other things. Also going to a Kings of War tournament tomorrow, so I'm going to do a report video on that, assuming my voice survives the day. If you have any questions or comments on my wonderful paintwork, drop them in the old comments, and I'll talk to you next time, folks. Ta-ta!